It is so exciting to me to talk about Jesus and the way that Matthew wrote about it. So let's turn over to Matthew. Matthew chapter 8. Matthew chapter 8. Last week we looked at Jesus touching the untouchable. Touching somebody that nobody else touched because of how much he loved and how much he valued that person who happened to have the disease we call leprosy. And he put that right at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. And the sermon tells us about how God values us. And it warns us about becoming religious and looking at things in a whole different way than God does. And if we internalize it, if we really accept that, then we understand our value. And we can value everyone. Okay? And Matthew's not through yet. The next story, the very next story in Matthew chapter 8, starts in verse 5. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, asking for help. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home paralyzed and in terrible suffering. Jesus said to him, I will go and heal him. The centurion replied, Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes. And that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was astonished, and said to those following him, I tell you the truth, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west and will take their places at the feast of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of that kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and grinding of teeth. Then Jesus said to the centurion, go, it will be done just as you believed it would. And his servant was healed at that very hour. Okay. Who does Jesus value? Who is valuable in the eyes of Jesus? Now, this story is very upsetting. Because he runs into a centurion. Now, that tells you a couple things, right? Actually, the centurion doesn't run in. The centurion comes looking for him. Centurion is a commander of 100 troops. It's a Roman commander. Tells you one thing. First off, he's not Jewish. Right? He is high up in the occupying army. How do you feel about occupying armies? Who really gets excited about having an army occupy their country? Now, I'm in the South right now. I can talk about General Sherman. And some of you would have feelings about that name. Because at one time, the South was occupied by an army from the North. And they loved it. It was a high point in the history of the South, wasn't it? Something they celebrate all the time. Oh yeah, Sherman's March, that was a great thing. Yeah, the burning of Atlanta, oh, that was wonderful. Now, if you can just get a little taste of that, or if you had a taste of that maybe from your grandparents or your great-grandparents, and how they felt about that, then you will have some idea about how these people felt about a Roman centurion. Not only that, this man came to Jesus to talk about his slave. His slave. This man owned another person. Now, was a slave, was he Jewish? We don't know. We don't know. Do slaves have high standing in society? No. Very, very low. They were counted as possessions. They could be inherited. They could be passed. They could be traded. Did you want to justify helping your occupying army's material possessions? Is that something you were excited about? And you can look at a slave that way, right? That's like getting excited about his car. Come help me, my car is not... They say, well, not Gary, you can't do that. We're talking about a person here, right? We're talking about a person, and a person shouldn't be owned by another person, and we believe that, and we think it's a terrible thing to think that somebody could own another person. Don't we? I do. This centurion owned a slave. And he came to Jesus because his slave was sick and in terrible pain. He was paralyzed and terrible. We don't know what happened. Did he fall down? Have an accident? Something fall on him? But he was in terrible pain. Now, is this because the centurion really wanted the guy to be out of pain, or is it because he had a major investment? We don't know, do we? Was Jesus asking those questions? No. The picture that we have in Matthew, which is totally different than the picture we have in the book of Luke, and I'm not even going to get into comparison the two, but it is a fascinating study because there's a major difference in the way this story was presented. In this story, the centurion himself comes to Jesus and says, I've got a slave that's sick, he needs some help, he's in some pain, and Jesus said, let's go. I'll go. And that meant that Jesus was willing to go to the centurion's house. I'm sure it was a nice place. Right? But Jesus was Jewish. And this man was a Gentile. Could Jesus go in his house? Not if he was to obey all the customs and mores of the Jewish religious practice. You could not go into the house of a Gentile. What did Jesus say? Let's go. Wow. Somebody's in pain. Jesus said, I'm on my way. I'll be there. And the centurion said, well, wait. Because he knew that was going to cause trouble for Jesus. He knew that wasn't going to be cool. He'd been with the Jews long enough. He knew that they couldn't come in the house without being unclean and there being a fuss and a ruckus. He said, no, you know what? Jesus, just get the word. Just say. Just tell him. Just heal him from here. He said, I understand authority. I understand authority. I give orders. I get orders. I don't question them. I do them because of who gives the orders. What's he saying about Jesus? He called him Lord, didn't he? He said, all you got to do is give orders. And Jesus was astonished. That's the word in your text. He was blown away. He said, I haven't seen that kind of faith in anyone in Israel. Amen. This man acknowledges who I am. He has an idea of what that means. That's faith. He trusts that I am Lord. I have not seen that anywhere. This is they're going to be, in that great feast when we talk about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob getting together and all the descendants getting together, and there's some people who are going to want to expect to be there, and he said there's going to be people there that they are going to be blown away about. And this centurion is going to be one of them. And some that aren't going to make it. Or to be outside weeping and gnashing of teeth. And he said to the centurion, it's done. And the guy said, okay, thanks. I went home, and his servant was healed. Now, did he deserve that? This isn't a deserving thing, is it? This isn't Jesus at Luallin weighing the merits about whether this slave is worth my time and energy and effort, and whether you as a slave owner are worthy of my time and energy. No, it wasn't about that. It was about the fact that Jesus cared about that person who was sick, the person that was in pain. What's that tell you about God? Now, guess what the religious people are going to be debating about? About whether he should have done that or he shouldn't have done that. Or whether he did it right or should have done it some other way. Or whether he should have prefaced why he did it. Or whether he should have... What you see is a story about God caring about somebody didn't even know. Somebody that the culture didn't even value. We don't even have a name. What's that tell you about your God? Two stories right after the Sermon on the Mount. Story about the leper that Jesus touched. And the slave that Jesus healed. We're going to tell you one more story because we got time. Okay. It is in chapter 8, verse 14. It says, when Jesus came into Peter's house, right? He knows Peter. He's already called Peter. He saw Peter's mother-in-law lying in bed with a fever. He touched her hand, and the fever left her. And she got up and began to wait on him. This is where I'm tempted to make mother-in-law jokes. Worse still, I'm tempted to make Jewish mother-in-law jokes. And all of you go, no, don't try it, Mary. No, no, no. There's things that you can't say. And that's, you know, if I was Jewish, I could make a Jewish mother-in-law joke. Right? I'm not going to try. But you can only imagine somebody that would. Right? How valuable was Peter's mother-in-law? Well, first off, she's a woman. Right? How much value do women have in that society?
Just about slaves.
Wow. And here's a woman who is past childbearing age. What does that mean? She has even less value. Here's something really interesting, and this happened in all three Gospels that have this story. It's almost verbatim in all three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Okay? It says that Jesus touched her. Oh, you know, we got the fever thing. Right? Do you guys like to be around people that have fevers? No. Why not?
Because it's contagious.
Yeah, it's contagious, you know. You don't really. I mean, it could be a bacterial thing, some infection get really bad. It's not contagious, but still, you don't know. How much did they know at that point? They knew that fevers were very dangerous. You know, we're in the generation we say, oh, you got a fever? Okay, no problem. Stay at home, take some aspirin. Take some Tylenol. Wait for the fever to go away. Don't let it get too high. Right? Drink a lot of fluids. Have you heard these things before? Am I giving you new medical advice? Okay. Are you afraid of a fever now? 80 years ago, if somebody had a fever, it was a serious thing. You didn't know. This could be the end. This could signal the end. 2,000 years ago, somebody had a fever. It's a very scary thing. So, Jesus goes home with Peter, right? Goes to Peter's house. He finds the mother-in-law. Maybe Peter knew. Maybe he told him. Maybe Jesus came because of that reason. But finds the mother-in-law. She's got a high fever. Again, we know that Jesus can just say something and be at a distance. Right? What's he do? Well, he puts on his gloves. You know? Because he wants to stay sanitary, and he goes in and he puts on his mask because he doesn't want to. He touches her. Fever leaves her. And then all three texts say, she gets up and she waits on him. Now, that's telling you one of two things. How miraculous that fever went away and how much better she felt right away. Or maybe how miraculous it was that she would wait on anybody. Two possibilities there, right? Hey, your mother-in-law moves in with you. Who takes care of whom? This woman was so taken by Jesus that she gets up and she waits on him. And maybe that in itself was just as big a miracle as the fever leaving her. Okay, 3 stories. Let's review. The untouchable man, the leper. The man with no status. The slave. The slave of an officer of an occupying army. And a woman, past her childbearing years, who has a high fever. Who does Jesus care about? Now, with those stories, can you possibly feel cared about now? Can you fall into one of those categories somewhere? Can you feel valued? Do you understand that it's more important to Jesus that you feel loved than it is to deal with all that religious stuff? Amen. That says you can't touch him. You can't go in his house. You can't touch her. That's how valuable you are. Now, we're going to finish chapter 8 because we got time. Okay. It says here, when evening came, many who were demon-possessed were brought to him. He drove out the spirits with the word, and he healed all the sick. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah. He took up our diseases and carried our illnesses. All right, we're not going to finish chapter. We're going to finish that section. That's as far as we're going to go. Matthew said, this is the fulfillment of Isaiah. He took on everything. Took it on for everybody. Amen. And as we celebrate the Lord's Supper this morning, everyone, everything should ring through your minds. Everything. Everyone. Everything that you need forgiveness for, he took it on. Amen. Everyone who feels invalued, everyone who feels unloved, he proved you wrong. And this morning, as you take a little bit of bread and you put it in your mouth and you have to deal with the taste and you have to deal with the smell and the touch to remind you that he became flesh. And as you take a little bit of juice and then you deal with the smell and the taste and the touch to remind you that he bled because he took it all on for you. Amen. Because you are so loved. Amen. And so valuable. This morning, you're part of that everyone. And you're part of that everything. Let's keep that in mind as we take the Lord's Supper.